with your host, Andrew Romanella.
When you play Battle in Mario Kart and you don't turn off any of the items, there are bananas everywhere. I mean, it's like you're losing your balloons because you're slipping on bananas left and right. Bananas everywhere. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of The Rome Show here on 12ouncesports.com, broadcasting live on YouTube and X. I am your host, Andrew Romanella. I got you for the next 30 minutes or so. It is Wednesday, which means it's a
hump day.
And we have some headlines for you, but I will not be alone. We didn't have Rocky on the show yesterday, so sometime in the next 5 or 6 minutes, Rocky will join the show, and we will have Rockies roundups starting today. We're in the off season of the National Hockey League, so I just didn't feel like Hockey with Rocky was the appropriate segment name at this time. So we are going to, in the summer months, transition it to Rocky's Roundup. Okay. Now, if Rocky gets on here, has his own opinion on this, he's more than welcome to adjust the title of his own segment. You can write in The Rome Show on Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, all the social media handles if you want to give us your opinion, or comment live on the show on YouTube or X. We're talking Major League Baseball ratings today. We're talking Major League Baseball national broadcast coverage for the 2026 season. We got some NHL free agency on the docket, and you probably didn't know this, but now you do. The NASCAR in-season tournament will be, I guess, starting its engines very soon, and we have the entire bracket for you for the NASCAR in-season tournament. So let's get started here on a Wednesday with our first story of the day, and that's Major League Baseball viewership ratings. I feel like this has not been something that's been spoken about enough so far this year, and I feel like Major League Baseball has gone through so many changes in the last few years, you don't even realize or know if those changes have been beneficial to the game. Well, the truth is they have been, okay? And here's some really cool information about it. So far, the viewership on the national networks, so Fox and ESPN, who cover nationally the most amount of baseball, the contract currently in ESPN's hands, though it ends at the end of this season because ESPN opted out of the remaining 3 years of the deal. 10% viewership increase on Fox, 22% viewership increase on ESPN. And then when you include all of the streaming services together, MLB TV, Apple TV, and wherever else MLB's had a game or two, up 27% from the 2024 season. And that comes off the heels of last year's World Series being the most watched World Series since 2017 at a nearly 15.8 million clip. So dating back to October 1st of 2024 and rolling it into the halfway point of the 2025 season, Major League Baseball, from a viewership standpoint, is really taking the appropriate strides, especially when you look at what the viewership decline got to in 2023, okay? In 2021, 2.36 million on average viewed baseball. That dropped to 1.88 million in 2023. Well, that's then when you saw larger bases come into play, less pickoffs moves come into play, which therefore created more action in the game. The invention of the pitch clock, which I think was not taken very positively at first, but now when you look at the totality in length of games, you can see that that is clearly having a positive effect on the game. So it also then begs the question, well, how do you keep this momentum up? What happens when the ESPN and MLB deal runs out going into next season? Well, we did a little bit of research on this for the people because I found it funny, and I don't know if that's the right word. I found it that in a year, almost a full year now, where Major League Baseball has truly seen an uptick in the viewership, where Major League Baseball right now has so much great young talent that they can market. I find it interesting that at that time, ESPN has then decided, hey, you know what? We're good. We don't want the national coverage of baseball. We've been scaling this sport back on the entertainment Thumb Sports Network for the last 3 years. 3 years ago, before the bad viewership year, which is probably what ultimately led to ESPN not wanting to remain in that contract, ESPN showed 90 national games. This year, they're only showing 30. Okay? That's the major drop-off. Here is what Rob Manfred had to say on ESPN and Major League Baseball not renewing their deal. Now, reminding you that this decision came in February of 2025, right before Major League Baseball season started. So kudos to baseball, because after finding out you're losing your ESPN national coverage, which hockey just garnered back, basketball just re-signed into till 2032, and football is at the prominent level, they might as well call it the Football Sports Network. On the heels of that, you're having the best season you've had in almost a decade from fanship standpoint. So if you're baseball, you feel like you're in a really good position. Manfred said this: we have had a long and mutually beneficial partnership with ESPN that dates back to the first MLB game in 1990. Unfortunately, in recent years, we have seen ESPN scale back their baseball coverage and investment in a way that is not consistent with the sport's appeal or performance on their platform. Given that MLB provides strong viewership, valuable demographics, and exclusive right to coverage unique events like the Home Run Derby, ESPN's demand to reduce rights fees is simply unacceptable. ESPN trying to reduce the fees they must pay to Major League Baseball for the national contracts and all of those important things. And Major League Baseball feels as if they would be hindering their product. And for what reason? Because they believe they're on the uptick right now with the popularity in their sport. ESPN said this. The ESPN one didn't go. All right. So we got Manfred again. While ESPN has stated they would like to continue to have MLB on their platform, particularly in a light of the upcoming launch of their direct-to-consumer product, we don't think it's beneficial for us to accept a smaller deal. Good for Rob Manfred. He believes, Rob Manfred does, if you go farther down into this quote, we are blessed with a huge amount of content, 2,430 games in a given year. Because of that content, there will have to be some local component. But here's the key to what Manfred is saying, which is wild, that it's not going to happen on ESPN, though they already have that contract in set. I think there will be some local component, but I think the strategy needs to be more national, and our outreach needs to be more national. So that's the facts. So with this, ESPN's going to turn to Fox, okay, and see if they can make Fox their primary broadcaster. They can turn to NBC. NBC has Sunday Night Baseball, and they've had Sunday Night Football for so long, so they're a strong contender. Because, again, there's so much history wrapped around ESPN and baseball. It's been 8 years since Baseball Tonight stopped, and I can't even believe that, okay? Whereas MLB TV kind of took that over, but that's my childhood. All right. So NBC as a primary, maybe Fox. At least Fox will definitely keep the big time games, playoffs, whatever. And then the streaming services that are in on this are Apple TV and Amazon Prime as potential suitors. I think what's going to happen is this is going to be a combination platter of national television opportunity for Major League Baseball. I don't know how positive that is. I don't know if that makes it easier to keep growing the game because I got to go watch baseball on 4 different platforms. But is it better than me getting blacked out? Yes, it is. As long as the games can be viewable and there's no stupid local blackouts, I think that is the most gigantic for the sport. So we shall see what goes on with Major League Baseball. But for Rob Manfred and the entire league to be able to position yourself heading into this major television negotiation with numbers that are increasing in terms of viewership and talent all over the league, great time for baseball to make the right decisions to create long-term health again for this sport. Now, it could go the opposite way. They can make a bad decision right here, and all of this progress made over the last 2 years is for none. So a huge 6 to 8 months for baseball. Some news hopefully coming out over the All-Star break. What's going to come out of this show after the commercial break is Rocky Romanella talking all things sports on Rocky's Roundup. Stick with us here on a Update on the Rome Show. Back after this.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Now, inside the glass, hockey with Rocky.
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? Happy off season. Happy baseball.
Hey, pass the rock. What's going on? How we feeling today?
Yeehaw! Round it up.
Are
Let's
you feeling
go.
NASCAR happy? Is that why you have a yeehaw in your name right now?
Well, you said Rocky's Roundup, so I had to play to it.
That's some
Yeah.
good stuff. Grab the
Yeah.
lasso, baby. It's time for the roundup.
Let's go.
All right. Well, I hope you heard the intro. You have full autonomy on the name, but I just couldn't continue to call it Hockey with Rocky when I knew that there were other topics we might be getting to in this moment.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I like the roundup. I
All
can
right.
round it all up.
All right.
I get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. So, all right, so let's start with what I finished with before the commercial break, which was the viewership in Major League Baseball. On a layman's scale, Rocky, as a natural fan of the Mets and baseball, do you see a difference?
Absolutely. I've been more into the baseball. I mean, the last 2 years, I think we talked about it during the playoffs last year. I thought it was the best product we've seen from baseball in the modern era. And while you were talking, I looked it up. The game average time over the last 2 years, pre-pitch clock, 3 hour plus average game time. In 2024, your average game was 2 hours and 36 minutes.
Wow, that's like a full hour.
I mean, you can and you can literally enjoy the game now. I mean, it's a lot. The best that's what I like about I know when the commercials are going to happen in hockey. It comes after 14 minutes, after 9 minutes, and then again after 5. Like I know exactly when the
Good point.
commercial breaks are going to be. Right, I know how long intermission is. I know how long the game's going to be. Same now with baseball, you're kind of in the same playing field where you can just like, hey, it's 2.5 hours, like 3 if I'm in extras, but even last night, the Mets in Baltimore went to extras, and they've got the guy on second base now. So the game ended in 1 extra inning. It was great.
And they scored 12 runs, and you still were able to like stay up and watch the game, to your point.
Yeah, no, it was great. Game ended before 10:30.
The one thing that I really want to see from this whole pitch clock and all this stuff is are we scoring more runs? That's the stat I haven't been able to figure out. Is it more beneficial to the offense that the game's moving faster, or is it more beneficial to the defense? That's the one thing I want to try and figure out.
I don't care.
I don't care either, but I actually think in this speed up time, it's actually helped benefited the defense and the pitchers more than it has anyone else.
Yeah, maybe it has. I think for me, I mean, if you're a classic baseball fan, there's an element of, hey, it's awesome to see a team come back from 6-2, score six, and then put up another run, and it's a 7-6 game. Like that's fun. There's home runs. The Yankees Mets had a good home run battle the other night,
Yeah.
right? They had a great one, but I don't know if I've ever met a baseball fan or a classic baseball fan who's not going to sit in a pitcher's duel and think it's one of the best games they've ever been to.
Yeah, or go to a game and hope that that's the time you get to see a no-hitter.
So that's, so there's not, baseball, to me, baseball is a little different than like, football when you talk offense versus defense. Outside of like cheering for sacks, interceptions, and fumbles, a 0-0 football game is miserable.
It's terrible.
It's awful. You would argue that a shootout is better, even if you're on the losing side, whereas like in baseball, there is still, there is something to be said for an incredible pitching performance as much as it's equal to a home run, in a lot of cases.
You're right. That's a great point. You mentioned commercials before and hockey. I think what hockey does so well, golf does this now really well, and I've actually seen NASCAR do it a little bit, is they do the commercials, but while you're also still
side by side.
Yes.
Yeah, NASCAR has always done side by side. NASCAR has been great at side by side. Well, it's a continuous game, so you kind of have to.
But don't you feel like that also plays for golf, which could also play for baseball? Though the inning changes, there's always something you can be watching on the field. But I'm just saying in general, I having watched that in NASCAR recently, having watched it in what other sport did I just mention? Golf. I think that is something that all sports should think about considering.
Yeah, I think side by side plays in Major League Baseball when there's a pitching change, like mid inning, like. You had home runs last night from Lindor, and then a Soto hit, and then a Alonso home run, and you had to go to commercial mid inning because there was a pitching change. That I think is where you can get the side by side to play, because that's always when it's been problematic in any sport, right? It's like, all right, I just got a new inning. Guy gets lit up after 3, gets taken out again.
Yeah.
Dude, now I got to go to another commercial. Then the guy comes in, goes 1, 2, 3. So now I got to go to another commercial.
Yeah.
And then you just get exhausted. In football, it's like, okay, I scored a touchdown, kick a field goal. Now I got to go to commercial. Kick off, change of possession. Now I got to go to commercial again. It's just like, dude, can I watch the game? The only sport that has incredible viewing pleasure when it comes to lack of commercials, I'm sorry, is soccer. You don't have a commercial break.
Not one commercial break. It's great.
Illegal
45 minutes
in soccer.
Straight soccer.
So good.
One commercial
45
break.
minutes plus 6 minutes of extra time. No commercial. Straight gameplay.
So true.
The best.
That's so true. Rocky's Roundup here on a hump day. The Rome Show, 12-ounce sports, 12ouncesports.com, YouTube, X. Follow the show, whatever the case is. Let's get into hockey for a quick second, Rocky. And then I want to finish with the NASCAR stuff because I think it's really interesting what NASCAR has done. Much like what I talked about with baseball in the intro, NASCAR trying to find a way to keep reinventing itself so the fans want to be there. But we go to the ice first. Give me some of your roundups on the National Hockey League.
Roundups on hockey. So free agency started on July 1st. So what I've done is I've gone through the teams and their pickups, and I've just picked a couple of notables. So, I'll go rapid fire here with what I've got. Okay.
Okay. Hold on. Let's put on the theme music. Okay. Here we go.
All right. Carolina Hurricanes, very active. Obviously, the big trade for Keandre Miller from the Rangers, which I actually don't think was their best get. I think yesterday when they picked up Nick Ehlers from the Winnipeg Jets, I think that was their best get in the offseason. I like the New Jersey Devils signing Evgeny Dadonov to a 1-year deal.
Name.
I think right? I think they actually did a pretty good job in some of their smaller pieces, re-signing Jake Allen, that was a big one, but ultimately I like that Dadanoff piece. It shows that they're really committed to figuring out a way to win. It's a 1 year deal, but those are the deals that are like, hey, if we win, we get to the Eastern Conference Final, we win a cup, like that guy turns into a long-term investment for the Devils. So I like that one. Obviously, the Rangers getting Gavrikov from out of LA. I know nothing about this guy because he played in LA. All I do know is that he was third in the league in time on ice and had one of the best advanced analytics and one of the best gets by all of the people. So here
That's
we go.
awesome.
Let's go analytics for the pickup there.
We love
Um,
analytics.
Vancouver re-signing Brock Besser to a 7 year deal. I think that's huge for them, based on their big culture breakup with JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, letting go of Rick Tocchet. I think those were all big, big cultural changes in Vancouver. And to hold on to someone like Brock Besser for them is huge. Vegas has been active, picking up Mitch Marner from Toronto.
Oh, that,
Huge
yeah.
investment there. I think it's a great move for Mitch. He's got everything he needed in Toronto, which was a culture of excellence. Without the limelight and the media that just berates you if you
Hammers
decide
him.
to have like a mediocre game.
How
For
about that
whatever reason.
superstar tandem that they have in Las Vegas right now?
Listen, Vegas, if you listen to the players talk about Vegas, they say, listen, you are there to win, and that is it, and
I
that's their
love it.
culture. And no one's complaining about it.
I love that. Honestly, I think that it's crazy to even think that they were an expansion team like 5 years ago. Like, that's crazy. Yeah.
Totally. Two more for you. Edmonton. Edmonton, very much controversial in who they're paying and how much they're paying compared to what you're seeing from Florida. But yesterday, Edmonton traded Tampa Bay for the 2025 Hobie Baker Award winning Isaac Howard, signed him to a 3 year deal. Speculation that the Rangers were going to get Isaac Howard. But a big trade for Edmonton, investment in the future. Hopefully it works out. I'm excited to see if Isaac Howard will be a good NHLer. And then finally, I wrote in huge caps in my notes for this segment: Panthers culture is unmatched in sports right now.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
I want to stay in Florida. I'm not chasing the money. I want to stay in Florida. I'm not chasing the money. I'm staying in Florida. It's like guy after guy raising their hand saying, I'm not chasing the money. I'm chasing greatness. I'm chasing the cup. I love the way I'm feeling.
Yeah. And I think that is something that you have not seen in sports since, I would argue, the time right around when free agency started, because for the longest time in every professional sport, your player on your team was your player on your team. They didn't really have a chance to leave. They were all homegrown, hometown people. Now you see less of what you just talked about with the Panthers than you do more. So when you see it, you're like, this is really freaking cool.
No, it's crazy because you don't see it after the championships, right? You could argue you saw it like, in the big three, in LeBron and Bosch, like taking similar money when they went to Miami. But after they won, that's not, that wasn't the case, even after, I guess you could say it in Golden State, but those guys were equally paid prior to them becoming, the champions they were, and eventually, ultimately have to, kind of break up, I guess you would say. But here, I think I would have to do some serious research to see if players have ever taken this type of, stance, and I want to be in this organization and make it work for the organization as much as it works for me to continue winning. It's hard for me to pinpoint something like off the top of my head. We're going to need someone to write in or like do some serious research to see that. But unmatched culture, Marchand, Ekblad, just everyone staying. It's crazy.
YouTube.com/12OZ Sports. Get there now if you want to comment and give us your thoughts on the dynasty situation, players not taking as much as they could get, whatever the case is. All right, Rocky, some stuff going on in NHL free agency. It's wild. You were mentioning the Devils guy that they signed for the year, and he is just one of many examples across the National Hockey League where you got these signings all offseason. Insert crazy name here. and you know nothing about this guy. But if your team wins that next year, it ends up coming down to that guy and the other 6 dudes like him more times than not.
Yeah, well, getting the Danoff, I'll help you out here. He played for the Dallas Stars.
Evgeny Dan Danoff. That's a great name.
Danoff had a little controversy on who he kind of was early on his career. Good guy in the locker room, bad guy in the locker room. We don't really know, but obviously you've been seeing the Stars put up points now for the last couple of years. Always find themselves in a deep playoff run. He's been a big piece of it from a point standpoint. I think where the Devils lacked this year was like that high flying offense really turning into like a dominant force, and hopefully that guy brings that to that team. I mean, I hope he doesn't bring it too much because of the Rangers, but you see the Devils on the cusp, will he be a good fit, with that young core? Like, is he gonna fit with Heischer? Is he gonna fit with Hughes and Jack and when Jack comes back from injury, like, how's that gonna feel? How's that gonna look? Timo Meyer's always been there, but he's never really been like that high flying A plus. So I'm excited to see what the Devils do based on their pickups.
We are talking to Rocky Romanella. It's Rocky's Roundups here on on the Rome Show, 12ouncesports.com. Also at x.com/12oz sports. It's so easy. Find the show, listen, watch, whatever. If you miss it, the Rome Show podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Over the weekend, Rocky, NASCAR was in Chicago, and they weren't in Chicago just turning left. They were in Chicago on a roads course. And the dude that won, I could try and say his name, but I'm not going to. Shane Van something or other. Ginsburg. There you go. That's the second time he's won in Chicago. He actually had his first career win on the street course in Chicago. I got the standings, the FedEx Cup standings for you up right now, Rocky. Yep. But go ahead and give us your thoughts on the current NASCAR standings.
Shane Van Gisbergen, former F1 racer, came over to NASCAR about 2 years ago, absolutely dominates the road courses, is a full-time NASCAR racer now. And as you're seeing, like utilizing that road course ability to now find himself into the playoffs. He's got 2 road wins this year, right? Does okay on the tracks. Like think about look at your top 5 guys. You look at Larson, Hamlin, Bell, Byron, and Chase Elliott. Look at 5 top 10s apiece, right? Multiple wins, across that span, except, for Byron and Elliott with only 1 win, but ultimately, like Shane Van Gisbergen doesn't really show well in the oval, right? He's not good at just driving straight and left, but you get him on the road course, he goes left and right, up and down. Dude's a stud, right? Because that's where he came from. But he's going to find himself in a NASCAR playoff where, it is points driven and race win driven. And there are street courses, in the playoffs, Watkins Glen, I believe, being one of them. So it'll be interesting to see if he can advance, once he gets there. But the playoff race is shaping up. Tough day for Bubba Wallace on Sunday in Chicago. Gets into it with Alex Bowman, a longtime heated rival, and in that clash, Bubba drops to 28th, I think, to finish the race, but more importantly, loses 21 points in the standings, putting himself in a pretty vulnerable position, being that he has not won a race, this season. He's typically found himself on the cut line the last 2 playoffs, really in jeopardy of not making it for the first time over the last 3 years.
And if you see the standings in NASCAR, kind of like golf, top 5s and top 10s almost weigh just as much as wins, because you're going to have so many more top 5s and top 10s over the course of a season than you are the 1 or 2 or 3 singular wins that you're going to have. So the biggest thing when you're following along the FedEx Cup standings, if you're following a racer, you're trying to figure out, well, what do these guys got to do to get into this playoff of top 16? The first and foremost thing is finish top 10. Like if you can run your race top 15, top 10, almost every single race, you're going to have a really good chance. You got to sneak a win in there every once in a while, kind of like what Rocky was just talking about. It's almost like Shane Van Gisbergen's whole ploy is just do as best as I can on the oval. I know I can road course, and I can be in.
Look at Tyler Reddick, look at Alex Bowman, Chris Buescher, and Bubba Wallace. Now, Buescher and Bowman both have 10 top
10.
10
That's
finishes.
insane.
Now, let's say next week in Sonoma, it's the last race of the regular season.
I got
Okay.
that up for you right here, Rocky.
Right. If Ryan Preece wins that race, he's in.
Yeah.
And those top 10 finishers, they're out.
Out. Yeah.
So
Crazy.
although it's great to collect the points and run in top tens because that's going to get you in the great spot, if there are 15 racers with W's and you don't have one, and someone from below you wins, doesn't matter if you've got more points, that person's going to the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's a huge difference. And you see right here on the screen how quickly the door is closing on the NASCAR season. And that race at Darlington is just the first. What is it? 8? I think it's 8 playoff races or something like that, Rocky.
4 rounds.
Wild.
4 rounds. Yep. 3 races per round.
That's so fire. I think that's
and 1 race for the final 4. So
and then
round 1 of 16, 3 races. Round 2 of 12, right? 12 racers, 3 races. So that's 6. Then it goes down to a round of 8. It's another 3 races. That's 9. And then there's 1 race for the championship. So 10 races all in total for the playoffs.
that is crazy. And you know what's funny is we talk about NBA playoffs lasting long. It looks like the NASCAR playoffs are equally
10 weeks.
there.
Right? 10 weeks. No different really than the NBA or the NHL playoffs. 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's a grind. It's a grind to get there. And they've now added this. Okay. On your screen is the NASCAR in-season challenge, literally almost identical to the NBA or to the Premier League. All of the racers are ranked 1 through 32, and whoever wins this in-season challenge will garner an extra $1 million on their paycheck this season. Rocky, your thoughts on the NASCAR in-season challenge?
Similar to the Club World Cup, had no idea this existed until about 3 weeks ago.
Right? Same, dude. Same. Couldn't agree more.
I love it. It's funny that it's Bowman and Wallace, that found themselves in that, rubbing his race and battle on the track, but it was Bowman and Wallace that were head to head in the in-season challenge. And I think, one of those, if I'm a naysayer of these in-season challenges, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, look, Bubba Wallace gets into it with Alex Bowman. Was it about the in-season challenge or not? Listen, Bowman advances, great. But you know what? Wallace is the one who takes the biggest hit because it puts him in a worse position for the overall playoffs. And we heard that, we saw Charlie McAvoy in the Four Nations tournament, get hurt, couldn't be there for the Bruins. Bruins don't make the playoffs. Charlie McAvoy sitting in his home like, man, maybe if I didn't play in Four Nations, this would have happened. Bubba Wallace fans might be saying, if he doesn't engage in this, maybe not. I don't know. I actually love it. I think the irony here is that none of the mainstays who are in the top of the standings, who have been dominating races all year, they're not here.
Yeah. You're right about that. And I'm looking at the chances to win the title. The 18th seeded William Byron has the best chances at 9.4%. over Christopher Bell at 8.5% and Denny Hamlin at, I believe that is 8.5%. So those are the 3 with the top most chances to win the in-season tournament. It looks like we might have, he's back, baby. Thought we lost him for a second there. Rocky, just talking about the odds at the top of the standings. You want to give us your final thoughts before we get out of here today?
I had a technical difficulty there. I lost. I didn't hear a word you just said once I stopped talking. So I don't know what happened. Someone tried to call my phone.
All good.
I think it messed up. But you don't know who Ty Dillon is. I think you said that. You probably don't know who Eric Jones is. John Nemechek. Ty Gibbs, because it's Joe Gibbs' son.
Yep.
And you don't know Joe Gibbs as Joe Gibbs Racing. You know Joe Gibbs because
Football,
of course.
Yeah.
I don't know who Zane Smith is. I think he's pretty good.
What you missed me saying was the top 3% chance odds to win the in-season tournament go to William Byron, Christopher Bell, and then Danny Hamlin.
Yeah, but how? They're out.
So, well, according to this thing, forecast model odds for NASCAR in-season challenge, William Byron's in the 18 seed. Danny Hamlin's the number 1 seed.
Yeah, but they lost their head-to-head matchups. There's only 8 racers left.
So who's remaining?
We're going into round 3 in Sonoma.
Ah,
Bowman versus Dillon. Nemechek versus Jones.
they don't have the updated challenge. That's why. Okay, here we go. I got it. Okay, here we go. So you have. It's wild to think.
Priest versus. I'm taking my money on
Tyler Reddick.
I like Tyler Reddick and I like Ty Gibbs here.
So you essentially just have to outrace the person you're going up against in the given race.
So I've got Reddick and Gibbs, but they'll play each other in the semifinals if they both advance.
If you think about this is a genius idea by NASCAR because you got all of these people that need this $1 million in these stock cars right now. You know what I'm saying? Like there's probably 15 racers in this tournament right now that are like, this is life-changing if I win this tournament because I know I have no chance at the FedEx standings right now.
Well, yeah, but you also need to finish ahead of the guy you're battling. So if you can win, it might push you to win a race. All
it's like a double whammy.
Listen, I love it. My final note on NASCAR, I started it last night, but there's a documentary 4-part series on Dale Earnhardt on Prime. Great start. Real good Southern accents. Real good old school interviews. Shout out to the Valvoline guys.
Yeah.
Goodyear tires, real beat up tires this week, but
tires went fast. We went fast.
But those Goodyear guys, they made them last. I just want to shout those guys out. Huge. There's a lot of that in there. A lot of good old school racing videos. So hit that up.
All right. The first official Rockies roundup in the books.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw! All right, Rocky, you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining us.
You too. See you later.
Peace. Rocky Romanella, everyone. What a time we have when he joins. Hope you enjoyed the roundup today. Roundup gives you everything. That's why we like the roundup. Rocky will come back next week. What day? Well, we'll figure it out. Just know that when it happens, you got to be here. The Rome Show, 12ouncesports.com. X, you know the drill. Back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Until then, peace.
Thank you for listening.